All right, we're joined now by the former Health MEC Dr. Bandile Masuku's legal representative. Was still trying to get him up at this particular point. You'd recall, of course, that the former Health MEC was against that special investigating unit report, and it basically challenged his lawyers, also saying that the judgment itself that had come out today in a statement that was released by his legal representative Mojalefa Motalane, who were trying to get on the line, basically saying that the judgment itself does not address the matter of the executive oversight by the executive authorities. Let's get him, in fact, on the line now. Legal representative for Dr. Bandile Masuku, Mojalefa Motalane. Mr. Motalane, a very good evening to you. Thanks indeed for your time. Is Dr. Masuku considering appealing this decision?
Hi, good evening, Priscilla. Thank you for having us. Well, at this stage, the legal team is still considering, all the legal options available and carefully studying the judgment so that, Dr. Masuku would be advised properly in terms of what appropriate course of action he is entitled to actually take.
One of the things that I picked up in your statement, sir, is that you said you're concerned that the judgment, however, does not address the matter of executive oversight by executive authorities and the limits thereof. That was your main bone of contention, wasn't it?
Indeed, it was, Crisada, amongst other issues, of course. But what is quite pertinent, and which is a point that we want to reiterate, actually, is the fact that, the oversight responsibility, as clearly articulated in the PFMA, has responsibilities of both the executive authority and the accounting authority. And unfortunately, for instance, the court does not deal with what is the role of the accounting authority. And that's some of the concerns that we currently have.
Does Dr. Masuku, I'd recall in the early days of this entire debacle, Dr. Masuku believed that he was a scapegoat in this particular matter. Does he still feel the same way as he continues in his legal battles?
Well, you'll see from the reading of the judgment, that in fact, although the court does not use the exact words, but the court very clearly finds that, the SIU saw no crime being committed by Dr. Masuku, and thus there were also no basis for a civil action to be taken against him. And it went further to also say that, it was determined that Dr. Masuku was in fact not accused of corruption or nepotism. And therefore, you may then interpret that, as you have just articulated now. So ours, is to note the fact that the court has actually vindicated Dr. Masuku and exonerated him on many of the charges that were leveled against him of corruption and nepotism, which now the court has determined that are quite unsubstantiated.
Well, based on those court findings, Mr. Motalane, does Dr. Masuku still want his job back?
No, the court review was never about Dr. Masuku getting his job back. It was squarely...
I agree with you, Mr. Motalane. The question is, on the basis of what you've just said, and of course the fact that, as you say, that you would agree with me if I say that Dr. Masuku believes he was a scapegoat, does this mean that ultimately in future you would see Dr. Masuku fighting to get his job back? This was not about getting his job back, I agree with you. But in future, does he want to do that?
So perhaps let me put it squarely that the fight can never be ever about Dr. Masuku getting his job back, because the prerogative, for appointment of executive authorities at provincial level rests with the premier. At national level, as we know, rests with the president. So the premier at any time can decide to appoint, disappoint, or do whatever he deems fit with regard to his cabinet. So in that regard, we never actually made the review case about that particular point, because it's very clearly stipulated in law and there's no issue about that. But from the point of view of Dr. Masuku being a political activist and his future political prospects, prospects rather. That is entirely, up to him as an individual, and as to what he intends to do, I'm sure he will take that decision in due course.
When are we likely to get a decision on whether you will appeal this matter, Mr. Motalane?
We were hoping that by the end of the week we would have made quite a clear determination as to, what is the way forward. But at this point, we think that it is still important, that the public is aware, actually, that, the court had found that the SIU findings were largely unsubstantiated. And as a result, there could not have been any wrongdoing from a corruption and nepotism point of view that can be alluded to.
Mr. Motalane, we look forward to hearing from you close to the end of the week on what your decision will be. The former Health MEC Dr. Bandile Masuku's legal representative, Mojalefa Motalane.